basically I am new, and I'm using new in inverted commas here. I'm new, first of all, to all of you because I got the impression that many of you all have met before. Some people are obviously new as well. I'm new to teaching and to academia as well. I was in private practice at a firm actually for about 7 years before I started to teach at the law school. So teaching is new to me, and now this is my 3rd year of it. And I'm new to the concept of street law. And over the past couple of days, I would say I've learned so much that I can actually take back at home and implement in our program. But what the past couple of days have given me as well is validation that I think we're doing something right at our program in Trinidad and Tobago, the Hugh Law School. And I think that some of the things that I can take back from here can only improve and maybe redesign our own program to be more in line with the principles of street law. So, let me tell you first of all about my organization, the organization that employs me. The Council of Legal Education. It was established by a treaty of Commonwealth Caribbean countries back in 1970. In 1973, the Council set up 2 law schools, the Norman Manley Law School in Jamaica and the Hugh Law School in Trinidad and Tobago. Later on in the 1990s, the Council established a 3rd law school, Eugene de Puge Law School in the Bahamas. Now, the 3 law schools have a common curriculum. Our students are from various jurisdictions and they're zoned. So if you're, for example, from Jamaica, from the Cayman Islands, from Antigua and Barbuda, you go to the Norman Manley Law School in Jamaica. If you're from Guyana, Trinidad and Tobago, Barbados, St. Kitts, sorry, not St. Kitts, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Dominica, some of the OACS islands, you go to the Hugh Law School in Trinidad and Tobago. If you're from the Bahamas, you go to the Eugene de Puge Law School, and that law school also takes some of the overflow from some of the other jurisdictions as well. But at the end of the day, the 3 law schools have a common program, a common curriculum, and the qualification that you get is the same, the legal education certificate. We are the professional training law school, so our students come to us with an LLB degree already. We are a 2-year program. And that LEC, no matter where you get it, whether at Norman Manley, at Hugh or Eugene de Puge, empowers you to practice anywhere in the Commonwealth Caribbean as long as you meet the admission requirements for each jurisdiction. So you can get an LEC in Trinidad and go and apply to be admitted in Jamaica, and vice versa. It's all throughout the Commonwealth Caribbean, including Belize and Guyana, because we do consider them Caribbean, Commonwealth Caribbean, because they touch the Caribbean Sea and they are former British colonies as well. Oh, and it is timely that today is the final of the World Cup 2020, and rally around the West Indies. We will defeat England later this afternoon. I just have to put that in there. Alright, so let me tell you a little bit about what I do. I'm based at the Hugh Law School in the Legal Aid Clinic, and I'm also the coordinator of the Human Rights Law Clinic. I'm actually one of approximately 9 full-time attorneys in our legal aid clinical program. And that's the type of program where we have live clients, live files, students in and out all the time. What I also do is I coordinate a human rights law clinic. Our general clinic, it operates for financially challenged members of the public, but we do have due regard to the educational value of the types of matters that we take on. So normally we have a means test, but if it is that someone is above the means test criteria, but we think that there's great educational value, we would actually take that client on for the benefit of the students as well. But in addition to the general type of clients, and that portfolio is mainly family, a lot of estates and trust, a lot of land litigation, some conveyancing, some contracts and tort, running down matters, etc. We give our students specialization because we have so many students. We have approximately 300 students in each year. It's a 2-year program, as I said. The clinical program is only in the 2nd year, and of course it runs concurrently to some of the other academic courses. So while they have clinic going on, they also have conveyancing, civil practice and procedure too, some other courses happening at the same time. So we try to get at least half of them out in each of the 2 terms by giving them the option of specialization. And that specialization is either family, trust and equity, criminal, corporate, child advocacy, environmental, intellectual property, or my program, the Human Rights Law Clinic, which is what I'm here to talk about today. I know I speak very quickly, so if you all are having any difficulty understanding me or you need me to slow down, just let me know. Alright, so The Human Rights Law Clinic has been around since 2004. I actually was a graduate of that particular program. It was previously run by a High Court judge, and since I came to the law school, I took it over. The aims and the objectives of the clinic have not changed fundamentally. They've always been advocacy and education. I think what has happened over time is the clinic really embodied street law principles, but because the face of the clinic, the person who ran the clinic was a High Court judge and had to have that degree of taking a back seat on very topical issues, it wasn't able to do as much as it could. And since I've been there, we've been trying to push a little more and go even more public in terms of the types of things that we do. So these are the aims and objectives on the screen, and like I said, they haven't really changed very much over the past 10 years since the clinic has been around. Now, we have various methods of assessment. This is the model that I met when I was a student. This is still the model. We're looking at sort of redeveloping and tweaking a little bit, but basically it's three things. The students write an article, 500 words, for a column called Law Made Simple, which appears in Trinidad Guardian newspaper. It runs every Monday. They get assessed on that. That's a written advocacy type of project. They visit schools in Trinidad and Tobago. And then they also do a practical, community-based type of projects with an educational and human rights aim. Now, like Arthur's project in Uganda, our program is very student-centered. Our students have a lot of autonomy. And that autonomy means they choose their own topics, they choose which schools they want to go to, they choose their own projects generally. There are advantages and disadvantages to this, of course, and I'll try to talk about that a little bit later on if I have the time. But how we assess them is we use a simplified version of the criteria, the rubric that we use in our general legal aid clinic. And this is basically what we look for: intellectual skills, personal qualities, and professional conduct. And there are different things that would fall into each category and maybe even overlap with the others. Now, the main focus of my presentation today is on the school visits component. And since I took over the clinic, I changed it a little bit, because when I was a student, we had to go to 2 secondary schools. Secondary school in Trinidad and Tobago would be from age 11 to age 18. Now they have to go to 1 primary school and 1 secondary school. The primary school is maybe age 5 to 11. And I did that because it's a different skill set to break down a legal concept. Well, the concept is really human rights, but they have a lot of autonomy and flexibility in terms of how they want to deliver that concept to the students in the schools. We don't just throw them in the deep and tell them, go do a school presentation. We actually do proper training with them. So the presentations, they're given a training session by a High Court judge, and they have a manual that they can use for reference material. There's a model presentation that we give them, which they can adapt and tailor according to their circumstances, according to their audience, etc. And of course we encourage them, don't rely on PowerPoint or on technology too much. You might go to a rural school where you just have flip charts, you just make some posters, make some Bristol board sorts of charts, etc. And they learn how to do that. And I think the point should be made is that although we as a clinic, we don't necessarily get credit as an advocacy course, I think our advocacy is just as important as programs in the law school such as trial advocacy or mediation advocacy. Now, let me talk to you a little bit about the schools that we went to this year. I'll come back to this presentation. I have a little video that I'm just going to, well, a slideshow really, that I'm just going to run through while I speak. I'm hoping that the technology will cooperate with me this morning. Let's see. Let's cross our fingers and hope this comes up relatively quickly. It's loading, it's loading. Something's happening, no, nothing is happening. So I'm just going to let it run while I talk. Okay, so we have 16 students in the clinic. It's a small number, but I really I think my friend from the Czech Republic said yesterday that she didn't clone herself. I have the same problem. I can't clone myself. And although our teacher said that she's used her alumni to get training done, that's something that we still have to do. These 16 students are divided into groups of 4, and they go out to visit the schools, as I said before. We have rural schools are encouraged as far as possible, because what we call the prestige schools very often get the benefit of having someone come to speak to them very often, whereas the more rural schools would not have this opportunity very often. Our students, at least the students from our clinic this year were from Trinidad and Tobago, Barbados, St. Vincent and Grenadines, and Guyana. So the ones from the foreign jurisdictions, because it's Trinidad schools, had to basically adapt to our school system and our laws. Trinidad and Tobago is a very cosmopolitan country, very similar to South Africa. We have a little bit of everything. We are a former British colony, just like South Africa, so we had the Africans who came as slaves, the Indians who came as indentured laborers, we had a Spanish influence, we had a French influence. So the schools we visited this year actually would have been Roman Catholic, Muslim, Hindu, and also government schools which have no specific or particular religious affiliation. And we send our students out in suits. We send them out to look professional, to encourage younger people to be interested in law, and those are the types of questions we often get from the students. How do I become a lawyer? How do I get into this field? And I think when you see someone coming well dressed to your school, it gives you a sense of, all right, let me take them seriously. So that's the that we've tried to encourage as well. All right. So I want to talk about a specific lesson plan that one group did this year on disability rights. And when I say disability, it was really physical disability. So what this group did is that they decided to tailor their model presentation on this particular issue. And I'm very proud of them, because what happened with this group is that this experience affected them so deeply that they not only did this particular issue for their school's presentation, but they did it for their community project as well. And they created a documentary and a little video that we shared online. I'll probably show a little clip of it before I wrap up. But it shows that the learning components of this, although I think these students in the secondary school that they visited got the benefit of what they were trying to do, they learned as well, and their learning impacted and shaped their own presentation going forward. So what they would have done is that they would have researched law on discrimination, industrial relations, freedom of movement, etc., as it related to persons with disabilities in Trinidad and Tobago. And they would have put it in the form of a PowerPoint presentation. I have it. I can email copies or tweet out copies. I really can't go through it right now, but because of the time, of course. And they did some really fun, engaging activities with the kids in the school. What they did is they identified the types of disabilities, they discussed the local legislation in the areas of discrimination, well, industrial relations, freedom of movement, as I said before. They spoke about international conventions and standards that affect persons with disabilities. They got active participation from the kids. They encouraged the kids to lobby on behalf of disabled persons in Trinidad and Tobago, and they encouraged them to use social media, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, to talk about this particular issue. And they did these really cool challenges as well with the kids. So what they did a blind challenge where they would have blindfolded one member of the class and had them look for a reward among a crowd of students. They would have done what they call an amputee challenge, where they had them come up and see who could tie their shoelace with one hand behind their back the quickest. And then a deaf challenge, where they gave them words and they tried to get their friends to read their lips. And the point of all of this was really just to get them to understand how difficult life is for persons with disabilities, and then go into talking about the law, talking about advocacy and what they can do as members of civil society or even future attorneys. And of course, they gave the kids chocolate rewards for participating in these types of things. So let me just see if I could give you all a really, really quick look at that video. I just want to show you all the quality of the video that they would have produced in terms of this. They call it the social experiment. And it really, really blew us away in terms of how they portrayed this. What they did is they got a first-person perspective. They did their own research by going onto the streets of Port of Spain. Even before they began filming, they rented wheelchairs, they rented crutches, and they navigated the streets themselves just to see how they could actually navigate it. And then, after doing that, their own research, they would have presented and produced this documentary, which is actually on our YouTube site, which I'll just put the link. I'll just put the link here. So one guy took off his glasses and you can really see him. He walked around the streets of Port of Spain trying to see if anybody would help him and then, talking to people a little bit about their rights. And the purpose of this, again, it wasn't necessarily to talk about law. It was to talk about access to buildings, the lack of access to public facilities. What good is a public facility if it cannot accommodate a certain segment of the public? So this, I thought, was an excellent use of how their own school project inspired them to do something else. And I should say as well that our students have no budget. You would see when I was looking at the rubric before, I spoke about project management. They have to determine how they are going to acquire money if they need money. So they would either sell pizza somewhere in the law school, sell cakes, do donations, whatever they have to do, they figure it out on their own. So that's that is the type of work that they would have put in. Alright, so this is basically what they did for the social experiment. They created a short film about the challenges faced by disabled persons in accessing public buildings in Trinidad and Tobago. They did some research by getting a first-person perspective, as I said. This was to raise awareness by going viral, and young people are all on the social media site, so it did actually go quite viral. We got hundreds and hundreds of likes, not only in our country, but all throughout the Caribbean, because this group comprised 2 Trinidad and Tobago students, 1 Guyana student, and 1 St. Vincent and the Grenadine student. So it really it went quite far in terms of its reach. Now, that basically is the program. What I just want to talk to you all a little bit about is the problems and the advantages of giving the students this type of autonomy, because it's something that I've always done, it's something that I met and I've continued with it, but it's something I'm thinking about in terms of how we go forward and whether that is such a good thing. In terms of the problems, I would say continuity is a problem. We've had really good projects in the past few years. Some of the notable ones, this year we created a board game. Not the board game that David was showing us yesterday, and I'll show you a little clip of that again. We had this documentary. Last year we did an anti-bullying kit that could be taken into schools as a teaching method to train teachers how to deal with this issue of cyberbullying and bullying in schools. The year before, they created a coloring book depicting the rights of the child. Continuity is a problem because you can't have, as soon as one group of students leaves, that's the end of the project, it dies right there. I mean, obviously I need money to fund some of these things. There are many grants, etc. available. We've been looking into some of that. But I would like continuity for certain aspects. Another problem is perception. The clinic on a whole, there is a perception. It's in the law school, it's outside of the law school. This is not real work. What you all are doing is jokey business. This is not real work. It's easy. This is a guaranteed A. You don't have to put in very much work, and the students who actually do it, they realize, no, they spend more time doing this than anything else. While I'm speaking, I'm just going to put up one more one more slideshow about some of the projects we did this year. Yeah, people think it's very easy and there's very little involved. There's very little buy-in sometimes from some of the primary schools that we work with, because they figure, oh gosh, you're disrupting our syllabus in terms of bringing these students in to talk to our students. Like I said, there are some schools that get it all the time, so it's just like, oh God, another group of law students who want to come and talk to us. Whereas there are some schools that are so eager and happy to have our law students come. Advantages though, and this is what I've been thinking about in terms of why it's a good thing and how we can go forward. What I've tried to do with our principal is convince her that this is marketing. This is marketing for the law school. This raises the profile of the institution in the minds of the public. All of these types of things, we have them playing in monitors throughout the school. We have them up on the internet. These are shared. I have the students sharing this. So this is positive marketing happening all the time. The marketing, sometimes it's very subtle, just by creating a brand, having a standard font sometimes, or the digital advocacy. Every time they do a project like this, they have to do some sort of national media. You either get a newspaper or magazine to write an article, you go on a breakfast morning show to talk about this. So it is marketing for the law school. Team building. I've used some really good team building techniques, I thought, in terms of getting the projects done this year. I added all the students to WhatsApp groups, so sometimes if we didn't always have class, everybody's connected on the WhatsApp, we know what's going on, I can send them messages very quickly, they check it very quickly. I did a team building activity where we did a build for Habitat for Humanity. It was necessarily an official project, a gradable project, but they devoted a Saturday, and it was purely for team building. Printed t-shirts, send them out with the clinic t-shirts, and I think that some of the advantages were mentioned before over the course of the last 2 days, and I want to take that back with me and really think about how we're going to go forward. There have been calls for us to use the Human Rights Clinic as a traditional human rights clinic model, cases. I've thought about it, I've looked at certain types of matters, they've gotten exposure, they've gotten people come from Amnesty International, other human rights agencies to speak to them, but I like the street law focus and I don't think I want to change it too much. So the options I have are keep it as it is, rebrand it to a street law clinic, or transform the Human Rights Clinic into what people want it to be and launch a street law clinic as a separate entity. So, we'll see what happens. That's my presentation. Thanks for listening.
Very good, excellent.
Thank you.
So we have a couple of minutes to spare.
Well, one thing I'll do before I go there, which is I will just show you a testimonial from one of the students. I don't know how good the audio is, but again, this is all the marketing. We have them do testimonials so that they encourage their friends to sign up. Is it here? Thanks very much again.